I love it, man. Well,
what the fuck is up? Energy.
I love that.
Energy.
I appreciate the energy.
I appreciate you on this
man. Super talented Taylor Bennett. Welcome to VladTV.
Yo, let's fucking go. You know what's crazy? And now, please keep this in the video because it's got to be hilarious, man. For us artists and shit, I don't know if it's the same thing for everybody. Man, I've been doing like a series of interviews today. So when I walked in here and you handed me this weed and I was like, oh shit, I got, first of all, free weed. And I'm just going to put this shit on the record. It's people listening, I've done a lot of interviews, a lot of places. You probably think some of those places I've done interviews with gave me weed. They didn't give me shit. They didn't give me anything. So this is the first interview I've ever walked into and somebody gave me weed. Then I walked into this room and I started to hear your voice and I've been listening to you. Did you do the Calboy interview?
I did.
Okay, so I've been looking at that stream all day, right? Then I sit down and I'm like, this background, I know this background like no other. And I'm like, is this VladTV? And I was like, this can't be VladTV because they just gave me free weed. I had no idea that this is a Vlad interview. And I shout out to Vlad. I know we've been trying to do this for a long time.
Yo,
I know
Vlad,
that might sound crazy, anybody watching this. I got Troy Marshall that works my radio and stuff. So there's always so many great things that he's working on that I can easily just forget where I am and where I'm going. So, oh my gosh, I'm doing a Vlad interview right now. Vlad, bro. I'm talking to you and you're not on the camera. That was a big giveaway for me as well.
I love it. You know,
you guys ever met an artist that didn't know where he was? Here you fucking go, man. Taylor Bennett and Vlad, shit, I'm about to get high on camera. This is awesome. I always thought it might be like this.
Oh, I love that.
I love it.
You know what's crazy? Vlad was really excited. He said he's been trying to interview
I've been
you.
trying to do some shit with Vlad because you know the other thing is like I'm an independent artist. Look, I kind of talk like Vlad. I feel like I'm getting a little Vlad right now, but no, man, being an independent artist, you know, you work with a lot of different folks and you see a lot of different ideas. Like I was just with Hollywood Unlocked. Shout out to Jason Lee. Like that's one of my really good friends. Did a whole weight
I
loss
watched your
thing
interview
together.
to prep for that.
So it's like you meet different folks at different stages in their career, and like where Vlad was to where he is now, and as long as we've known each other, it's a blessing that we're working together now, but it's also just so cool to see what he's done with this whole business and how much it's grown. Like, so yeah, I've been trying to work with Vlad and get this interview in for a long time, and now we're fucking here.
Right, everything.
Let's fucking go.
God's timing, right?
Yeah, God's timing, man. God's timing. God's plan, really.
For sure. Man, well, if you don't mind, we're going to start at the beginning. You know,
Let's fucking go, man.
We're big on telling life stories.
I love it.
You mentioned Calboy, you know, Chicago mob ties.
Calboy, yeah, I love Calboy. Calboy went to school with one of my friends, and he's also just an amazing artist.
He's so dope.
But I love, you know, who he is, what he represents, man, and he's doing a lot of great work and things in Chicago to help out the community as well as around the globe in his career. So yeah, man, I wish Calboy always the most success.
I love that.
Got a lot of love for that guy.
Me too.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. But yeah, I wanted to, you know, you growing up in the West Chatham, did I say that right?
Yeah, West Chatham.
Chatham neighborhood.
I'm glad
of Chicago.
you asked me because I was gonna let it go, but you asked me, so I'll correct you. West Chatham.
I love it. Yeah, what was young Taylor Bennett like growing up there?
In West Chatham, West Chatham is like one of the like really respected communities in terms of a lot of different great folks have come from West Chatham and come from the Chatham community. Derrick Rose went to Simeon, which was up the street from my house. So I never met Derrick Rose, but like different family members lived in the community and whatnot. And, you know, so we've seen like a lot of success stories. It's also a very strong community. So a lot of grandmothers, a lot of grandfathers, a lot of, you know, just folks like my dad that's just very involved in the community and everywhere from streets and sanitation to different teachers that lived in the communities that also taught students that lived, you know, 3 doors down from them. And so it's just a really strong, great community and representation of, you know, the South Side Chicago and families and what that's like, you know.
For sure. Man, I know your dad, Donald, worked for the mayor of Chicago.
It's so crazy. I love that because it's hilarious. So Because did you just say Donald? You did, right?
Is that not right?
That's not right, but for some reason that's on Wikipedia. Isn't that crazy?
Man, I hate when
let's
that happens.
get these fucking fact checkers.
Yeah.
Like, fuck you, man. Like,
I hate
my
that.
dad's name is Kenneth.
Where did Donald come from?
Isn't that fucking crazy?
Wait.
And I think that people do that shit for sure. Like, and I like it. Like, I'm not against it. Like, I'm not against, like bots on Instagram and stuff. Like, I get it. I think sometimes that shit is hilarious.
That's funny.
But it's funny. Whoever did that, you made it all the way to Vlad fucking TV. So, no, my dad's name isn't Donald. It's Kenneth. But you could call him Mr. Bennett.
Okay.
That's what he would ask you to call him.
Oh, okay. I mean, you're Mr. Bennett too.
Sheesh, I'll take it.
Yeah. But yeah, what was that like? Because I think I saw in an interview, you say in an interview your dad put a black man in the White House.
Yeah. So my dad used to work for Barack Obama. But prior to that, I think the way to properly explain his story, just like we're doing with mine, is to go back. So my dad also grew up in West Chatham on 79th. He went to Simeon High School. His grandmother, Gladys Bennett, who was really involved in marching with Martin Luther King, and not just involved in that case, but in terms of like actually bringing different community organizers out, like a lot of, she really focused on children. So like Sunday school, summer camp, like she was, like I said, just like how we still have those figures today in West Chatham, she was like one of those grandmas, like, what are you doing?
Aww.
Like, you know what I'm saying? And she got my dad and all of his siblings, that was his grandmother, a job at Streets and Sanitation. And basically the whole thing was that they were going down there to, one, have this experience, build up their portfolio, but then they were also, working in the community to, help out. My dad ended up getting that job, loved it, was already very heavily involved in the community, started to work with different aldermen, started to work with, a lot of different folks, all the way up to working with Barack Obama, who at the time was running for senator of Illinois and then ended up winning. And then he brought my dad on to be the state director. And first he was just the state director for Illinois. And then he became, I forget what the exact title is, but he was like a state director of multiple states. And then he helped Barack Obama run his campaign, and then they won. And then Barack Obama brought him to the White House to run the West Wing. So, my father was like heavily involved in not just, the White House administration or the campaigning to make him the president, but also in the foundation that, his organization was based and created on, not just in Chicago, but like I said, throughout America. So
that's incredible. I have to ask.
My dad is a genius. He's like my favorite person.
Do you watch Bel Air?
Yeah, I know the actors on Bel Air.
Oh, okay. I just met Jabari.
Oh,
okay.
You just met? Yeah. So we'd be with him outside.
I
That's
love
my
it.
dog. I should have hit him while I was here.
Yeah, I asked because, the kids are very involved in their campaigns. Were you involved?
Yeah, of course.
Up?
Me and my brother were. So it was a huge thing. And again, not just for when he was running for president, but when he was running for senator, like definitely knocking door to door. Like that's my dad's whole concept of how you spread awareness. That's how me and Chance started passing out CDs and mixtapes, is we got a lot of those practices from his early political days. But yeah, he used to bring me and Chance to the campaign offices. We were making phone calls. Again, we were knocking on doors. We were putting up the posters. We were, so yeah, for sure. Like, well enough to know all of his colleagues and them know all of us by first name, last name. And if they saw us somewhere, they'd call my dad and be like, hey, I think I see your son doing this. Like, do you know where he is? Like, So yeah, we knew them very well as the family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Prior to that, what was the reality of growing up in the hood? I think I saw you say it's one of the most racist cities in America. Yeah.
I think it's like, and when I say that, it's really based off of a segregation idea. So like a systemic thing more. So basically like the systematic structure of America is racist, right? So like I was brought here on a slave ship. Not every minority was brought here on a slave ship, but specifically like me, I was brought here like on a slave ship and, wasn't treated as a human being for most of the parts that my lineage was in America. And then once, we were voted as 1/3 of a person or whatever, still wasn't getting that. And then once we did get the right to vote, they didn't want us to vote. So they were lynching us for that shit. And eventually once we got to whatever every man is created equal, there's still, mass oppression. There's still we're doing an interview right now. Vlad primarily, I think, does a lot of interviews with rappers. So, we know there's a whole rap industry that, perpetuates a stereotype or an idea of who African Americans are, not just to themselves, but to people outside of them. So, school to prison pipelines, and there's so many different things that are wrapped into hip hop. So when I think about, when I say that, like, Chicago is one of the most racist cities, I say that from a segregation standpoint. If you ever go to Chicago, all of the communities are very separated and they are very kept into their niche. So you'll see Black people primarily on the South Side, Black people primarily on the West Side, and white people primarily on the North Side. And you might just think, oh, well, that's just because they don't want to live together. Well, it is. There was this thing called redlining and the Black Belt that I want everybody that's watching this interview to go research, because there's so much focus on the Black community right now when it comes to movies, music, television, that I also think you guys should figure out, doing some kind of research to check these things out. But what I'm talking about specifically, it's called the red line, or redlining, and it was really called the Black Belt in Chicago. And it was this idea that, not even an idea, it was a real thing. So basically, when Black people started to migrate from the South and then start to move up north in search of better jobs and whatnot, they got to Chicago and all of these white people were like, oh no, we don't want these Black people buying these houses. So they started to do something called redlining with the banks, where the banks were not allowed to give loans to Black home buyers or Black folks that wanted to move up north, primarily where the nicer housing was. And then they created the Black Belt, which was, if you were a home owner or a home seller, that you could not sell a house at market price to anybody that was Black. And as those Black people started to move into those spaces on the South Side and West Side where white people also were located, they either moved to the South Side or moved to the North Side. And there's actually, this is something that's very important, I want all of you guys to research. There was a summer, it's called the Red Summer. And no amount of violence that they have ever tried to push to you on the news or in any tabloids measures up to the amount of violence of this one day. And it all started at Oak Street Beach. There was a young Black boy that was swimming in the water, and he had crossed over back in this point to the white side of the beach, right? So these white kids started to chuck these rocks at him. There's a young Black kid, and these grown white folks, they're chucking these rocks at this Black kid, and basically he has a phobia of trying to get to the sand because he's getting hit with rocks, and he ends up drowning in the water. And there was this huge bloody fight that multiple people died in, half the city was burnt. Like, there's so many different things that surround that incident. But those things are what led to the Black Belt, led to redlining, which led to young Larry Hoovers and young Jeff Fords, which are the leaders and the organizers of these different communities, coming together and creating these gangs that were built to protect and to serve and to help the community. And those things came from Bobby Seale and Huey P. Newton that were a part of the Black Panther organization that was started in Chicago. And those people had after school and before school breakfast programs. We had activities. These were resources and spaces and environments for us to grow and learn more about who we were, that weren't set by the Chicago public school system. And today you see a lot of lost young men that look just like me because they don't have these outlets. They don't have academic extracurriculars. They don't have, those things have been taken. And what we do have, and I think this is one of the most profound things that I can say on this show, is we are now perpetuating the image that Chief Keef or Lil Durk or I or any other artist from the South Side of Chicago would rather be living the life that we are forced to live by the system. Some shit that is way bigger than YouTube or anything else. People do believe that we would rather do those things, rather ride around with choppers, rather be on, Parkway Gardens, rather than have an equal opportunity at living, to have the resources for our families to go to schools, to have generational wealth, to have ownership, to know who we are, to be informed on what's going on in America and throughout the world.
Right.
That is not true. We want those things so much more than we want diamonds, cars, lean, drugs, anything that you could ever prescribe to us. That's what we want. So when I say like Chicago is racist, I mean it from that perspective, not so much from the perspective of just white people screaming the N-word out their car and stuff like that. You don't even have to do that anymore if I already feel like that's who I am based off the systematic structure, again, that's forced that.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you are incredibly well-spoken. I feel like
Wow, thank you.
There's so much insight and you're just, I appreciate that. But I also saw growing up, people said you talk white.
That's my brother's line.
Oh, okay.
People did say that. And I think that clearly, so check this out. Like one of the biggest things when slaves were first brought to America is that they were not supposed to gather in large groups, right? The only time that Black people were actually allowed to later on in time to gather in large groups was at church, which is why the church is one of the beacons of our community, right? But Black people were literally stripped of reading, writing, all of those different materials during this slavery that started with European colonization, right? So there has always been a push, no matter if it's to use slang, no matter if it's to, and I'm going to say this is the truth about it. I want everybody that's paying attention to this. Once we learn how to express ourselves the way that we learn how to dance, and be rhythmically inclined, we will, and the whole goal is for us to never be able to, because I'll just tell you, there's a lot of things that make people embarrassed. There's nothing that embarrasses certain people more than being embarrassed because they've never been oppressed and they don't understand that. But what they do understand is when people embarrass them and they make them feel guilty. But if you can't express yourself, if you can't control yourself, if you can't conduct yourself in a formal conversation, how can you ever get anything, get anywhere in your conversation if you're not thinking about what you want or being able to really, again, express that? You know what I'm saying? So
I love that, man. And I know you attended Urban Prep High School. Were you always good grades,
No.
Oh, okay. No?
No. So I had an IEP. I had an individual educational plan, or in California, they call them 504 plans.
Got it.
But it's basically like they said that I had a learning disability. So I use that sometimes when I was younger, I think a little bit to my advantage, or I thought I was using it to my advantage because there were things I was missing out on and I was having time to focus on music or whatever I wanted to do at that point in time. But I failed a lot of stuff or passed certain classes that I probably shouldn't have passed if I didn't have my IEP. But no, I was never a straight A student. Very far from it.
So when did you start taking rap seriously or music?
I started taking it serious, I think, with, I had Twista. So big influence of mine is Twista, right? Because he's from the west side of Chicago and he had this song. And I think it's called Hope with Faith Evans. And it's like, 'cause I'm hopeful. Yes, I am hopeful for today. Take this music and use it. Let it take you away.
I love that song.
I love that song because that was like, again, and they talk about it in The Founders, one of my favorite movies, the McDonald's movie, where he says that a lot of times people think that there's a lack of demand, but truthfully, there's a lack of supply. So there's no demand when there's no supply, especially if it's such a small supply or short supply that you don't even know that should exist. And that song for me was an opening to my eyes that there were other ways to influence people and change their perspective or perception of what they could do. And I was like 9, I was on the South Side, and I think it meant a lot to me because I've always felt like my life was like a ticking time bomb. Like I had only a certain amount of time to get certain things across or do certain things. But that song made me feel as if I could be hopeful in creating something that inspires people to want to live life differently through music. So when I was 9 and I heard that was the first time I was like, I want to make music. And I started making music. And then when I was 14, there's this amazing space, shout out to U Media in Chicago, that gave the environment, like I said, that had been taken away from so many other Black people by CPS, and not just Black people, minorities, and not just minorities. There's some white schools that white kids weren't able to do shit either because they were on some petty shit. But that gave us the resource to go into an environment that provided us with studio technology, taught people how to engineer, taught us how to, actually, so like that's a school where Chance attended Vic Mensa, or not a school, but a program. Chance attended Vic Mensa, Saba, No Name, Mick Jenkins, Alex Wiley, like a lot of different Chicago creatives. Lucky X, that's like one of my really good friends. Like Lucky and me used to hang out there all the time. So there's so many different waves and eras of Chicago that it affected by giving us that space. So, I think that when I was 14, I started going in there. I put out a song called Dear Daddy and recorded another song, I believe called New Chevy. And I got King Louis on it. And that was like my start.
Legend. I love it. How was it just, growing up with Chance, musically, y'all were rapping with each other. And how was it just sharing that with him? I'm sure you guys can reminisce.
Yeah, it was really dope. I think like musically, like growing up, my parents always had like Lenny Kravitz, Queen, The Beatles, Sam Cooke, Aretha Franklin, Diana Ross, Marvin Gaye. Like so many different versatile artists that were always playing. It's like one of my most vivid memories isn't so much of me and my brother interacting through music, but was actually us growing up around music. Like music was always a very prevalent thing, like and I think that's something that I've realized, when it comes to publishing and money, and you're always listening to music. Like right now we're conducting an interview, but it's surrounding music. A lot of times, whether it's an elevator or a car or a TV or radio, you're always listening to music. There's so much money in music.
For sure. Is there any fondest memory or funny, crazy story with you and Chance? Just, maybe.
I got a crazy story. And I don't care because we do business with them all the time. Shout out to y'all. I'm not mad at y'all before I say this. When I was younger, I went to the Museum of Science and Industry, and it's this museum that's very well known in Chicago. It's actually one of the last buildings that's still standing from the Chicago's Great Fair or World Fair. That, like, I don't know if you... It's like, so it's interesting shit. But basically, man, I went there. I was like 3rd, 4th grade. And I was on a summer camp trip, and I went to this great body shop. So it was like a part in this Museum of Science and Industry where they have like giant magnifications, or I guess examples of the human body. So there's this one thing, it was like, I'll never forget, that shit was like this big, and it had fake blood cells in it. It was like filled with water and blood and shit. And you spin it, like I'm sure you've seen those, and then it like makes the blood cells move around how they move around in your body, an example. Never forget, I walked up to that shit, spun that shit, pow. Shit fell off the hinges, literally broke my pinky finger and like cut my shit. Like my shit was hanging off. And as a kid, it was such a crazy thing to happen because I still remember not even feeling the pain, but being laid out on the ground and looking at my pinky separated from my hand.
Oh my God.
And just so much blood. And my brother wasn't right there, but I'll never forget that like somehow he found out and like ran all the way to the ambulance. It was like, are you okay? Like blah, 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 blah. We like ran out the school field trip. They were screaming, they're like, Chance. We was running downstairs. So that's a funny story.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's crazy, right?
Pinky's good now though.
Pinky's good, man. I'm moving.
Yo.
Full movement, man. Full movement, baby.
That has to be traumatizing, no?
It's funny because that's not one of, I feel like maybe more traumatizing shit has happened because when I think about being traumatized, that's not the first thing that comes to mind.
What do you think of?
Another interview.
Oh, that's funny. So yeah, I guess, I remember, I saw you said your dad told you to stop trying to sound like Chance.
No. So that's what they do with the internet. He told me to stop trying to not sound like Chance. So basically,
right. That's what I meant. I'm so sorry.
That's perfect.
Okay.
That's perfect. So yeah, we were having a car ride. This is when I was around making this project called Broad Shoulders. That's one of my favorite projects.
That was a big one for you.
That was my first project. Yeah. And basically I was working on the project and I was telling my dad that I was working on these new sounds and songs and that none of them sounded like Chance. And it was something that I was going to start trying to reach more towards. And I'll never forget my dad was like, don't worry about if you sound like your brother. You're going to sound like your brother because both of you are my sons. Like you're literally like, he was like, what you need to be worried about is the music good? Like, are you making good music? And I'll never forget that shit because it is a very true thing that a lot of artists have siblings. Had to be a very similar situation with Janet Jackson and Michael Jackson, where it's like,
crazy.
Your brother is so talented, you have to be this much more fucking talented than Michael Jackson? What? But she was, like, to the point where she's had, one of the biggest record deals of all time next to Prince, So it's like, it's a beautiful life lesson.
I was going to say, I think I saw you perform at the Roxy before,
Mm-hmm.
and I just appreciate your love for music and actual instruments. Like, it's a
I
rare
haven't
art.
done a sample since before Broad Shoulders.
No way.
So never had samples on It's All Live instrumentation
Right.
and whatnot. And I think another big thing, and I'm glad we're on VladTV, great place to talk about it, is so much sampling in hip hop. There's no other genre of music that samples, but to bring it back to the conversation we were talking about before, again, the first rule of having slaves in America is that they weren't allowed to have large gatherings. And then the first time that they were allowed to have large gatherings was in a church. So a lot of times in church, you'll find different songs, and they talk about this, where they reflect not just a hope, but an upbeat melody of continuing to survive, right? And then you fast forward and music becomes an industry. And then when you start to hear music, especially from African Americans, when they have the platform, and I believe the first time African Americans had a free platform to speak how they felt and to show themselves off in the way that they wanted to, was with Berry Gordy at Motown in Detroit. And for anybody that doesn't know who Berry Gordy is or was the head of Motown that had Michael Jackson, Diana Ross, Marvin Gaye, The Temptations, some of the best artists of all time. And he started his own label with $500 that he got from working in a steel mill. And then he found Smokey Robinson that helped him write most of the music for The Temptations, the Jacksons, and all these, amazing folks. But basically to say that was the first time with his label that there was a Black owner that also was in charge of what the performances looked like, what the music sounded like, how the artists talked and addressed themselves. And there was this transformation, I feel like, and I'll just say this, the stories that Black culture, like Black music in America, has always been an insight for the youth of America, Black youth of America, or even minorities a lot of times. So, and you've heard Leor Cohen say this, I think, as well, in terms of hip hop and inner city communities and slums that create the most interesting or, whatever. So basically to just say that with Motown, with all of these different artists, first time that we got to speak freely. And then since that time period, the same songs that like Dancing in the Streets or What's Going On by Marvin Gaye that definitely have subliminal messages that are much more important than how the song makes you move, right? Is my opinion. Now we sample these songs and now we put these songs on records that are the exact opposite of what I believe they were originally intended to do. And to make it worse, the music industry that we talked about came after the existence of Black slaves making church songs and reminiscing about survival are now bigger and more powerful than the artists themselves. Mm-hmm. So a lot of artists will make any kind of music to get rich. I think that's like a big part of everything damn near that we do. Like even me, I got my white suit on, I got my chains and shit. It's like money. People look at us and we think about money. Right. There's no balance in just having money. There's no happiness in just having money. So...
Respect. I think I saw in an interview too, you had stopped wearing jewelry at a point?
Yeah, I went through a whole thing where I lost all this weight in like the last 3 to 4 years. I had 2 sons, which have been the biggest blessings of my life.
Right, congratulations.
But I had like a lot of change to my mental health, which is a beautiful thing, and to my physical health as well. And through that process, I had taken off all this jewelry because I was one, getting to know myself better, but 2, I was also trying to find balance and poise in my life. You know what I'm saying? So I was trying to not just have money, but also be very fit. I was trying to not just have good friends, but also have a great relationship with my family. I was trying to not just be a musician, but also do the business of it. And throughout that situation, there were certain things that I think I had to mentally let go of so that I could excel in other spaces and stop putting so many things on this plateau or on this platform that I can't reach, when the truth is that I already have it. Like these chains, and I'm gonna just say this shit, they look way better on me now because I'm fucking ripped.
I love that.
It's just true. That shit is true.
Yeah.
There was a point in time where I felt like if I didn't have my chains on, then my outfit wasn't raw.
Right. I just got a flashback.
My outfit didn't look good because I wasn't in shape. I'll just be honest. You know what I'm saying?
I got a flashback of you showing your abs on the Hollywood Unlocked interview.
Sheesh. That's crazy. I don't even remember I did that.
Jason was like, I think you showed us your crotch.
Jason probably wanted to see my crotch. What the fuck was really going on?
That's funny. Man, just real quick, piggybacking off what you were saying about the church and stuff, you know, I know Kanye was a big influence for you.
Huge influence.
He just did the Jesus is King. He combined the gospel with the hip hop. Yeah, I'm guessing you saw the Kanye documentary.
Of course.
Just what is that, like seeing someone from Chicago especially, how was that?
Like to see his success?
Yeah.
It's crazy. Because Kanye West is like, you know, a thing that I really like about Kanye West, because it's no different. If you're black, you're white, you're Hispanic, Asian, I don't give a fuck what people tell you. The truth is that we're all very much alike. And, you know, based off the different situations or places or however we might be feeling that day, you'll get a different side, right? Like that's just how it works. You wake up on the wrong side of the bed, you might be an asshole today, right? Kanye West is like a people's person. So like, Kanye West, like, what's bigger, and I was talking to Jason earlier about this today, Lee, what's bigger than anything that Kanye West has done, like in terms of his music, in terms of Yeezys, in terms of running for the president, is his willingness to speak on what he believes. And that is what makes Kanye West Kanye West. And people can hate his music, or they could hate his shoes, or they could hate, but the one thing that they'll do, they won't like it, they'll respect it. And they respect Kanye West. People respect Kanye West. And it goes deeper than his color of his skin and the music that he makes, and again, the shoes that he has on or that anyone else has on. And that's something you can't buy. It's priceless. Right. You know, respect. So I love seeing him win. And then I also love him using his influence to reach back to his community and to Chicago and to help elevate and put people in the situations, and more than just the situations, the mind frame. Because hip hop and affirmations are no different. If you sing, if you tell yourself, I'm the greatest, I'm beautiful, I'm strong, I love, I'm caring. If you say that shit all day, you're probably going to have, I don't know if you're going to have a good day. You're probably not going to get in a fight with nobody. Like, you're probably not, I'm just saying, but if you are all day pushing the same narrative, seeing the same stereotypes on TV, seeing the similarities of those stereotypes in real time in your household, and then there's the lack of supply, then there is no demand to be better. There is no demand to be great. You know what I'm saying? So I super love that Kanye is putting that perspective out there for people, and his music is allowing children and me to say things that are actually, I believe, helpful to moving forward and to achieving what we want to do in life. Right. You know? Respect.
I was going to ask what your favorite Kanye West album of all time is. Is it College Dropout?
Damn, that's crazy. Yeah, I think my favorite Kanye West album, and this is like, niggas gonna be like, what? My favorite Kanye West album is Watch the Throne. Okay. And it's for, like, as an artist, you know, and then especially looking at the documentary, you see Kanye West's journey, like, to get to that level. Right. So, like, we didn't even get to watch him become as big as Jay-Z was. We just got to watch him being like, yeah, these niggas not giving me money for this record deal. I got to go out and do it myself. I got to make this shit work. I got to get there. But the truth about it is, it's not easy ever to surpass your predecessor in anything, whether it be money, whether it be music, whether it be fame, it doesn't matter. And Kanye West created that moment for himself with more than writing and more than beats and more than being in the studio. It's the things that he did outside of, again, being in the music industry and being in the fashion industry that brought him to the level where, and then it's also about how I believe that his trajectory even changed not just because he made Watch the Throne, but because of how much time he put into Watch the Throne.
Right.
You can see the concerts, you could see the album, you could hear the music, and you could tell that Jay-Z and Kanye West went super hard on that shit.
Right.
And Jay-Z is my favorite rapper ever. But Kanye West went harder than Jay-Z on Watch the Throne. Kanye West, expression, production, show-wise, rapper-wise, it's like all, and that is what Kanye West is all about. Give me the whole cake. You think I can't eat this whole cake? I'll eat this part today, I'll eat this part in an hour, and I'll eat the half tomorrow. Like, that's like how he thinks. And I think that there is, again, a deeper importance to that representation for other Black children or other Black kids than there is in any money flaunting or anything like that. Like, again, that's something that's priceless.
Right.
His personality is priceless.
For sure.
Yeah.
What do you think? You know, it's mental health. May is mental health
awareness
yeah.
month.
Because, you know, he was vocal. They showed his struggles at the end of the documentary.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that? And just like, you know, there's a lot of antics that come with, you know, people think he wilds out when he drops an album.
Yeah. I'll start it off with this. I think that, and it's very important that we say it on VladTV, biggest misconception is that mental health is something that once you start discussing it, you should go see a therapist. Or everybody, just one more time for the people in the back, every fucking body has mental health.
Right.
Every single person.
That.
Everybody that you see.
Agreed.
And we all go through something day by day that pushes us back from the place that we want to be in. It could be anything from it's raining today to my coffee top wasn't all the way on and it's spilt on my laptop and now I have to clean this shit up, or to somebody passing away. Every single day, we have to struggle to keep our mental health intact. And there's a lot of different ways that you could do that, whether it be exercising or it be stepping away from the internet or stepping away from the computer or trying to figure out the right people to surround you so that you can grow and express yourself. You never stop growing. You know what I'm saying? Just like you never stop having problems, you should always be trying to push forward and push towards being the best person you could be. So I think that, like, just on that note, there's a lot of us that have mental health and we don't even prescribe or subscribe to our own mental health, right? Kanye West is a whole different level of mental health because there's been only a few people, I think, since the span or the invention of technology that have been as famous as Kanye West. So there's a different level of stress and anxiety that comes with that. And I don't think you have to be a rocket science to figure that shit out. Like, I don't get, like, what the fuck? Like, I don't get that many likes. I don't get that many, and I would imagine that having all those things and still wanting to have what he does want to have, which is a family, which is success, which is love and fulfillment with the people around him, that shit gets hard.
Right.
I would imagine that shit gets hard. And then also, just to say it again, the reason why I love Kanye is because he's not and has never been all about money. He's always been so balanced. So it's also when you're trying to be a fashionista, you're trying to be a music rap star, you're trying to drop documentary series, you're trying to do world tours, at some point in that, you're going to scream. You're going to get upset.
Right.
And I also think that they're based off the stereotypes that have been presented since the earliest days. And I talk about this on my new album, D.W. Griffith. Y'all should look up who D.W. Griffith is. He's the dude that made A Birth of a Nation, which was America's first film that was shown in the White House and depicted a lot of negative stereotypes about African Americans that have been perpetuated not just through hip hop, but through movies, through mass media outlets. Every time you turn on the news and you see some kid that's 13 and they're making him out to be a terrorist or to look as if he, all of those situations, I think Kanye West literally is like the disruption from those. And he's somebody that has always controlled his narrative and always been very in front of how people are going to see things. You know what I'm saying? And always, even if he doesn't know exactly how people are going to see things, still rushing to put the truth out there. So like, I have so much love for the guy and everything that he does. And I think that other people also, do and love it as well.
Definitely, for sure. Man, well, 2013, you dropped Speed Racer music video.
Yeah.
You released was your debut project freshman year, first semester?
Or no, my debut project was called
Taylor
Well, it was called The Taylor Bennett Show.
In high school.
Yeah, in high school.
Wow.
So I was like super duper young when I did that.
That same year, Chance dropped Acid Rap.
Yes.
What was it like seeing, you dropped, your brother dropped, that project blew up?
Yeah.
That was...
It was like it was really interesting, man. As anybody that I'm sure watching this, all of a sudden, people start treating you different because they think you have a lot of money. Like that's like for anybody that like sees anybody blow up, I don't think that person ever has as much money as you think they have. But what you do start getting is you start getting a lot of free shit, like brands, opportunities. So like, going in different spaces and places and people talking to you like all nice and shit. Like everybody gets really, really nice around you. So like, doesn't matter if it's your family or your friends or any of that shit. Everybody's like, oh yeah, like how can I help you? What can I do? Blah, blah, blah. And you love it. Like I think as anybody else does, like it's very exciting. But then as you get older, as you get into whatever industry it is, you start to realize that certain people might be saying things to you, or most of them are, because they see some way they can grow with you or they can stay with you while you grow. So, I mean, it was a really interesting thing. I think it was a really a great learning experience just for all the business that me and Chance will do moving forward. Because being independent, I saw so much music and I gained so many different relationships and got a very institutional understanding of the music industry and what it's been and where it's going. And that's some shit that, just like Kanye's personality, is priceless.
Did you have big labels call in?
Of course. Okay. I went to different meetings. I was just saying this earlier. I won't say which label it was, but I remember being like 18 or 17 and working on Restoration of an American Idol and getting different offers and flying to New York or getting flown out to New York and put up in super nice hotels in LA as well. And, going to these labels and you walk in and it makes you, and this is what I want everybody, because you never know when you're going to get famous, to remember, is that it makes you feel small. Okay. And that's part of the game. As you walk in and you see this big ass artist on this plasma TV screen and you don't even know who they are, but it looks like they're getting money. And then you walk into this little fucking loft area and there's fucking 75 people sitting on computer screens. And you're like, what the fuck? And then I go upstairs and I go into this really nice office and they're like, would you like some water? Would you want to see this? Would you want to see that? And then you sit down and they play your music. They tell you you're going to be the biggest fucking artist of all fucking time and that nobody has ever created or they've heard anything fucking like that shit. And there'll be one guy that's sitting at the end of the table and he just won't say anything. And then you leave. And then they call you and they're like, so what are we going to do? Are we going to work this shit out? As I got older, those walls that I felt like were so strong and all those 75 people that were working on those offices, not only did I see most of them leave and like in a matter of months and go to some other label or distro company or publishing firm or fucking agency or whatever the fuck they went to go do, because they were most likely even just freelancing on certain projects there. They didn't even really work there. That's some shit I didn't know. Now those walls feel like styrofoam. Especially with platforms like United Masters. Shout out to one of my favorite mentors and good friends, Steve Stout. Or there's a TuneCore, there's a Ditto. Shout out to Lee Person, one of my good friends in the UK that has a distribution company that, services Stormzy and, like a lot of different platinum artists as well. When I found out about agencies and the fact that I didn't need a deal to get a booking agency or to get shows or need a deal to create merchandise. And I found out people that could do fulfillment or that could do embroidery for me or just like shout out to Champion. I'm on this amazing tour, Be Yourself, Be a Champion
love
tour.
It.
And they could help me with my merchandise or even help me partnership to do larger marketing strategies than any label would ever spend the time trying to create for me. And, it's just really a big numbers game. So it's like I definitely went to see a lot of labels and I had a lot of different offers. But I just want everybody to remember That's some bullshit, man. Like the shit that, and I'm not just saying those guys at those labels. Like there's an industry that surrounds like best question or best situation. Whenever anybody, doesn't matter if they're black, white, gay, straight, says, I want to be a musician or I want to be an actor or I want to be an athlete, any logical person in that room probably looks over and says, well, who's going to manage you? And I think there's an issue with that. Like, I think that when somebody creates a sandwich, for example, right? They know exactly what you're going to do with it. Like, you know what you want to do with that sandwich. You want to eat that shit. Maybe you want to save it for later, but you know what you want to do with it. I don't think anybody makes a sandwich and they're like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? Where is this going to go? But for some reason, that's how people think when it comes to their talents. And I do believe it's a very strong pushed idea that you cannot be a musician and also do the business. But I encourage you guys to look at the life of Michael Jackson. I encourage you guys to look at the life of Sam Cooke. I encourage you guys to look at the life of Smokey Robinson, of Freddie Mercury, of Ray Charles, of some amazing, amazing artists that ended up keeping everything.
For sure.
You know?
I want to touch on real quick, 2014, you and Chance dropped Broad Shoulders. I think that year there was an incident.
Don't.
No?
No.
We're not touching on the incident. Copy. I just want to bring up...
You know why? Because it's all about positivity. And sometimes I think that everything has a time and a place, but it's also about making sure that you place those times and settings in the correct manner.
I hear you. 2015, just had to touch on it because it's a big celebration for your family, yourself. I know you dropped, Broad Shoulders, Dancing in the Rain was a big song. That same year, Chance drops Coloring Book, which wins 3 Grammys. So how is it?
That's a crazy story.
Yeah.
So to go back to the independent distribution services and stuff like that, in 2014, I was introduced to a guy named Chris Mooney. And he had this company, because in 2014, I was making Broad Shoulders, right? And the guy that I was making this project with, the reason why I also had no samples, he was an amazing producer. He actually lives out in LA right now. His name is Ludlow. Shout out to him. He produced the whole
I think I've heard of him.
album. He's really dope and he's really good. And he's done some big records. He started with Slim Shady in Detroit. Super dope dude. Basically, when we were almost done, like I want to say like 80% done with the project, he's like, yo, I want to take this and shop it around in LA for a distribution deal. I was like, no. I was like, you know, I have this independent thing going on. My brother's independent. We got to stay with this. He's like, well, if we don't get a distribution deal, we're not going to be able to really magnify or blow out of proportion how good this album is. And it was such a good album. And I told him, I was like, you got a point. He was like, if you figure out a way that we can get this stuff on iTunes and Spotify, which at that time was basically unheard of, he was like, then we could just put it out like the way you want to put it out. So me and my 16-year-old friend, Joseph KB, shout out to him, amazing guy, very, very smart, got on Wikipedia, or not Wikipedia, we got on Google, and we searched self-distribution platforms. And the first thing that came up was this place called TuneCore. So we started looking at, I think at that time it was either Facebook, I don't even know if LinkedIn was there yet. Found this guy named Chris Mooney and hit him up. I'm like, hey man, you know, we're trying to work on this project and distribute this album. He was like, man, I got you. I know what you guys are doing. I see the Bennetts, blah, blah, blah. Let's work on this album. Did the distribution with TuneCore in 2014. They had all these conversations. I also learned at that point that I needed to reach out to the DSPs individually. So I had like small connections at Spotify and Apple, but I reached out to both of them and got like amazing placements for my record. Like next to What a Time to Be Alive, I believe, in some G-Eazy album. Crazy, blew me away.
Right.
So once I got that, not only was I doing that, but I had also figured out in this independent scheme against the major labels, now how to distribute and put your music out and make money off of it without signing any deal. And I'll never forget, I went to my brother and I was like, Chance, you have to distribute this record. You have to figure out, you know, what you're going to do with this record. And I believe what was crazy is that prior to that, he had already used TuneCore for a record called Juice, which was his biggest first blow-up record. Yeah. And because there was samples on it, I believe that the Beatles estate had reached out and asked him to take it down, or maybe Elton John, his people. But basically, from that conversation, Chance went on to put Coloring Book through TuneCore, which is the way that they started the conversations with the Grammys of a certain amount of sales or a certain amount of streams should count towards a certain amount of units because I guess at that point you had to have a certain amount of units to even qualify as the Grammys, and they weren't even counting streaming. And by doing that, Chance was able that year to take home 3 Grammys. But that all came from the first discussion about independent distribution. So crazy how these things add up and then turn into something you never fathom. Right. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. How was it holding those Grammys?
It was crazy, man. I still, like, when I get a chance and I'm at Chance's house, I'm like, let me pick this shit up.
Yeah, right.
It's super dope, man. You know, super fucking dope.
For sure. Yeah. I love it. 2017, you came out as bisexual on Twitter before your 21st birthday.
Big B's. They put the animation right here.
Right. I think you came out a year ago before announcing it. Is that true?
No. So basically in 2018, Be Yourself released, which was a project of mine, but it was supported by my decision to come out as openly bisexual to the LGBTQ community.
Gotcha.
And the reason why is because there's a lot of people behind this screen that probably struggle with identifying or expressing themselves. And what I found out is that it's not about you, it's about the people around you and the opinions of what you say and how that changes your perception. And I'll just be 100%. Everybody is right when they say, when you come out, usually you don't get anything. Usually you lose shit. So like I'll tell you why.
Okay.
So like I've done a lot of work with homeless youth, and it's because growing up and through the experience that I had after coming out and seeing like other stories, a lot of times people get kicked out the crib when they're young and they say they're gay. And it doesn't matter if you're black, if you're white, whatever background you come from, a lot of times, whether it's friends that decide they can't fuck with you anymore, or it's family members that literally kick you out the house or just stop talking to you, you lose something. So, you know, like the debate that sometimes people might have from my community, which, you know, there's a discussion for it, where they're like, everybody should just come out, or people should just be who they are. People should just be themselves. Like, that's why I have Be Yourself, because I want to create an environment, whether it's through the amazing tour we're doing with Champion, where, you know, I go to concerts or go to house parties, and sometimes I didn't feel like I fit in. So let's have a tour where people feel like they fit in. First day of school, I might come to school and people will heat me because they'll be like, your shoes are bogus or your shirt is bogus. So let's make merchandise so people can feel cool and be swagged out in expressing themselves. But basically to say that I realize that there are these pockets that people don't feel free to express themselves. And a lot of those pockets lie in the hip hop community and in the Black community and in multi-ethnic or minority background and communities. And I believe a reason for that is that there is opinions that sway us every day that have no control of us, including sometimes being your sexuality or who you choose to be with, that affect us in the world with things that we need. So if you're trans, you can't get a lot of jobs. You don't get a lot of interviews. You get passed up, you get talked about, you get talked down to. There's so many different things that you lose when you decide that you're going to be trans, or when you're going to be gay, or when you're going to be a lesbian or bisexual or queer or whatever you want to call it. So again, there's not a place that people feel comfortable because there's not enough representation. And that is what I believe every artist's job is to in some way have a responsibility and due diligence to the community that you provide to, and you provide your service and product to. If I walked in a Walmart and all the lights were off, I'd be pissed because I expect that to be part of the experience. Show me what I'm buying.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It's the same thing.
For sure. Did you speak to your parents or Chance before publicly announcing?
Crazy is that I just came out on Twitter, and I think that was like a big plus for me because it's like I have fucking technology. And I was also at a point in my life where, although I wasn't the richest that I could be, the only thing that I really saw that could be taken away at that point, besides people that would want to walk away, and if you wanted to walk away, I didn't want to be involved with you anyway in my life, was my career. You know, I could come out and say I'm bisexual, and there could be 50% of the people that I support that say, fuck that, that's crazy. I'm unfollowing you. I'm never going to a show. I'm never doing whatever. But I always say this, and it's very important, because I came out on Twitter within the first minute or two, I had the ability, and you know this, who hasn't been hacked by one of their friends that says, yo, I'm gay. Like, I love big dicks, or like some crazy ass shit. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's growing up. Like, that was like a 24/7 thing. Is like,
that's true.
You hacked my shit and you said some gay shit. Like, that's like the first thought, right? Is like, you say some gay shit or you say whatever. So in the first 2 minutes, I did have the ability, if I wanted to come out and just be like, yo, my shit got hacked. I actually remember getting calls from a lot of my close friends like, yo, I think somebody got your Twitter. And I had to keep being like, nah, bro, that's me. But what made me not do that and not decide to make that change was the immediate response of support that came from not just my fans, but even the outside community. And I do, again, believe that there is a respect in being yourself. And it goes from me to Kanye West to JC.
Hell yeah.
And there's no barriers that lies between.
Hell yeah. I was going to ask, were you bothered by some of the homophobic hate that you got online?
It's crazy, and I always say this, and somebody was just saying this shit to me yesterday. It was DJ Head. Shout out to DJ Head.
I love DJ Head.
But he was saying that the craziest thing and what he liked so much about when I came out is nobody said anything. Like, I mean, I definitely got a lot of love and support, but I didn't get really any hate from anyone. And I do believe that there's an idealism that there is hate that lies behind conversations that are not had. And that really comes from a fear of hearing something you don't want to hear or finding out something you don't want to know. And I, don't like to live in that, space or place.
Definitely. Man, well, I was going to ask, recently Isaiah Rashad got outed. A sex video.
It's so crazy because, like, of course, I'm on a press run right now.
Do people ask you?
People keep asking me that, but I just feel crazy because I love Isaiah Rashad. It's like one of my good friends. I haven't seen any of so it's like, what and maybe you could explain it to me. Because this is my last interview before I leave, so I do want to figure out what the fuck this is about.
Oh, you don't know?
I don't know.
Oh, so a sex video was leaked of him with 2 other men doing sexual intercourse, but people didn't know he was gay. So I was going to ask you,
is that what happened?
I'm pretty sure,
that's like the craziest, because
I don't think he was, that's what I was going to say. How does it feel to see him get outed versus you, who you made that decision to come out, but he didn't? Well,
I said this shit earlier because I didn't get that much context. Thank you for giving me the context. But it's fucked up to out anybody. It's fucked up to feel that you have the control to dictate when somebody expresses themselves. And I think that is a big issue with social media because it's given people access to say things about people without having to have a conversation. And it's also double-edged sword because, like I said, I came out on Twitter and I didn't have to tell my mom, dad, or my brother. I told them after I put that shit out.
Were they mad about that, by the way?
No, of course not. They were very happy.
Okay.
And they loved the fact that, I was being honest with myself, and it was just something that I think a lot of people very truthfully go to the grave with whoever they have attractions to.
Right.
So I even think from a perspective of somebody that could be straight, it's still viewed as something that could be courageous or brave, right? But yeah, with that situation, again, I think it's petty for anybody to try to out anybody. I don't think it's a cool thing to do. I don't think that shit is just so petty. And also, I would say that the situations, everybody is different. Nobody is alike. No matter if you're black, gay, straight, Asian, white, Mexican, Indian, doesn't fucking matter. So the one thing that we do all have is mental health. And when you start creating or shifting or shaping somebody's environment without their control, which is easy to do it's just fucked up, man. Right. It's like kind of like playing God a little bit,
I was gonna say, how would you have felt if a video like that got leaked,
I mean, yeah, and I'm saying I would have felt super bogus about that shit, especially if it wasn't when I was like, hey, guys, I'm bisexual.
Right.
So, yeah, no, I think that shit is not cool. But again, I think everything, God has everything and it happens, you know what I'm saying? And life just keeps moving forward. And I definitely wish much success, but I also know he's just a successful person.
Right.
So
and
I know he's not, really sweating that shit.
He actually addressed it at Coachella at the beginning of his set.
Oh, he addressed it at Coachella. So there we go. That's what I'm saying. It's like, fuck that dude, and I'm glad that he did address that shit, because any power or whatever feeling that person might have had over him is gone.
Right. For
so
sure.
Shout out to him, man.
For sure. Piggyback off Be Yourself EP. Can you explain the cover?
Definitely, man. So the cover, it was really important because like I was saying earlier in the interview, now I'm like super cut up. I got a 6-pack and all this shit. I had to start learning who I was. And I think a lot of times learning who you are is looking at yourself in the mirror. And I think that once I did that album cover, that's when I stopped wearing all my jewelry and I started working out, because I had painted a picture of who I was, not just for myself, but also for the other people that were outside that had a perspective. And that was everything from my sexuality to the expression of music to the expression of how I looked. And from there, I've grown and gotten to a place that I never thought I could go. But in order to be a better you, you also have to know who you are. So that was like a learning moment for me. And it was a learning moment that I shared with a lot of other people. And I've seen a lot of my fans that me and Jason Lee lost all that weight together. We worked out together. Like I was FaceTiming him and looking at his gym, and he was, are you doing your push-ups? And this is what my core set is today. And now that nigga is Kanye West's publicist. You know what I'm saying? So things happen and change, and that was a big, big level and like just an amazing point. And I'll just say it again. How many artists can say that? Like I came out, I was on an album cover of mine with just rainbow underwear on. I still have not just the same fans, but more fans.
Right.
That's some shit. Now that might be the key to Taylor Bennett. That shit is priceless.
Right.
Freedom.
Right.
You know
Beautiful.
what I'm saying?
Real quick, I want to ask, like, besides the working out, was there something, like, how much did diet and nutrition play into it? Because I'm sure a lot of people try to get on that path, but might fail because it's too hard. They don't have the discipline.
You want to know something about working out? 2 things. First thing is that you know exactly how much is required for you to work out. So a lot of times when I first started working out, I might not work out because, and it's the same with your mental health, I know how much time it's going to take away from the things that I would rather be doing, right? And I know how much I have to exert to get there. And the idea of that seems hard. Doesn't seem easy. When I'm saying it to myself repetitively, just like when I'm saying affirmations, I believe these things. I believe this is hard. You know what I'm saying? And then versus the second thing is that working out is the only thing that's guaranteed results. You could work at a job for 20 years, know everybody, know the custodian, know the CEO, know the next day fired, you're gone.
That's
you could
real.
have somebody
That's
that
real.
you fucking put 20 years, 15 years, you guys are married, you got 3 kids, y'all, one of them's going off to college, the other 2, one's graduating elementary school, other one's in high school, you got a whole life around this person, they leave you.
Yeah.
Or they die. The only thing that if you go do that shit and God, if you go over there and you do 30 push-ups, guaranteed result. And that's why I fell in love with working out. Because there's so many things in life that you cannot depend on.
For sure.
Why put my time anywhere else? You get what I'm saying?
Who do you listen to when you work out?
Man, I listen to Queen a lot.
Oh, wow.
Mr. Blue Sky is one of my favorite songs to work out to. 99 Balloons is one of my favorite songs to work out to. And then when we go Motown, I'm instantly Temptation Swag.
Got you.
Sam Cooke Swag. Smokey Robinson Cruising Swag. I like to, and then now let me tap into what I also really be listening to. Superstar by Lil Got It. Classic.
I love
fucking
it.
classic.
Real hood babies.
Hellcat, Lil Key.
I love
fucking
Lil Key.
classic. Like I love. Shout out to those are my dogs. Like those are my that's my family.
Love
so
it.
You already know. Shout out the whole wild self. Of course, I'm listening to Mad Thug as well.
Right.
And those songs, like those were like some of the first early songs. That's why I like to play them even now because I see like the difference, you know.
Yeah.
And then of course like definitely always listening to Durk. Definitely always listening to Vaughn.
Chicago.
Yeah, Louis. It's like a big thing where it's like, because a lot of people don't understand this, and it's also an important thing. a lot of people don't know, but the idea of drill, why it's called drill music. Do you know?
Enlighten me.
Okay, that's a good response. Drill music is called drill music because it's music that was originally made to pump you up.
Oh, okay.
So it's like it gets you ready for whatever you're about to go do. And most likely it was a drill, right? Oh. So, yeah, I know, right? That makes a lot of sense now. It's crazy shit. It's kind of fucked up, right? Yeah. But it also can pump you up in those ways when I'm in the gym. And somebody else that I would say, his music is nowhere near drill music, but one of the highest streamed artists of all time and definitely gets me going in the gym and so many other people. Do you know?
NBA Youngboy? No. Oh, damn.
You know, Eminem, bro.
Oh, my dog is named after Eminem, so I feel...
Man, you just say NBA Youngboy.
I know, my bad.
No, shout out NBA Youngboy, man. That's what's up, yo.
I love Eminem. That's the GOAT for sure. The GOAT. How was it working with Young Thug?
Man, it was crazy, yo. Again, that's how I got linked up with like Lil Gotit, Lil Key, Gunna, like Duke. Just a lot of people. One thing that I've always respected about Young Thug, as well as him supporting me on the Be Yourself project, he was the only major feature, is that there is an idealism that surrounds hip hop and African Americans in terms of the LGBTQ acceptance. And even that year, I was on The Breakfast Club and Hot 97 talking about how people weren't even discussing rap and gay anything for like that whole thing had like died down. Like if you were gay and you were a rapper, that didn't even exist. And then all of a sudden you got people talking about Young Thug in a dress, Lil Uzi Vert with a purse, and like
Kid Cudi.
However they want to see these things, and I'll say Lil Uzi Vert and Thug were doing it first. However they want to see it in whatever expression of their sexuality they want to see it as, it was embracing the conversation to begin. Right. And a lot of times people worry about how it started versus what it got done. So his support of me at that point and that time with the album, like I sent my album cover to Young Thug, and Young Thug was like, I was like, what do you think I should do? And he was like, nigga, your title says it. Be yourself. Like, that was like his response to that shit. And he is a beacon for the community. He's somebody that is so business savvy and so loving in terms of look how many people around Young Thug have become as successful as Young Thug. That's just the biggest thing. Like, that shit, it does give you chills because he's a fucking genius. Right. And he shows so much love. And again, it's like, I got cool with Thug. Like, I was on tour in Atlanta and I hit Thug and I'm like, yo, I'm trying to link with you. I'm in Atlanta. He like, come through. I go to the studio. It's 80 people there. So many people that when I got in, I had to keep saying, yo, hey, where's Jeffrey at? Where's Jeffrey at? And then I finally get in the studio. Where's this man in the booth? But it's a thing where his family members are there. His artists are there. His artist family are there. Like, it's some shit that you don't really see in the Black community when it comes to business. His family is so vocal in his business as well. Like Dora, like his sisters, like everybody. And it's just a beautiful thing to see success and also see a family working together and also see them lifting so many other families in the community. Like, that's just fire.
Yeah, I actually interviewed Carlay for Vlad.
There we go. Yo, Carlay is my fucking homie.
I love her.
Yeah, no, that's
incredible.
What's up. Shout out Carlay, and her music is fire, man. She's on the up.
Yeah, she was just saying that she, Thug didn't sign her because whatever their relationships, he signed, she got signed for her talent. Like,
yeah, I'm getting that. She definitely, I know Thug and her having the best relationships are the ones that are longevity. And they've always been together. So.
Right. No,
but I would also say that I think that her music is so dope. And I could also understand why she might not want to, you know what I'm saying? Like, you know how that go. You know what I'm saying? Sure. I don't know if Beyonce is signed to Roc Nation, but I don't think so. Yeah. I don't fucking know. Like, you know what I'm saying? So I get it.
For sure. Speaking of relationships, congratulations, you became a father. How was that moment? Because I would imagine out of all this shit, that has to be the most meaningful. Like, Yeah,
out of anything that I've ever done, like, having children let me know that I have enough. And Jim Carrey said that shit in an interview.
Oh.
I don't need whatever millions of I'm so blessed. Like, I'm super duper blessed. And I know it's some folks that are probably watching this behind the screen and they thinking, man, that nigga can't be that blessed. Well, you're blessed because you're looking at this shit on a fucking laptop screen. You have internet in your home.
Right.
You have water most likely, and probably some kind of food that you could digest. And if you don't, then I'm definitely praying for you, and I hope that it gets up and gets better from there. But I'm saying, when I say I have enough, it's not from a materialistic value. And I'm sure y'all have heard this expression. You can only drive one car. You can have 8 of them motherfuckers. You could only drive one at a time. You could have 10 cribs. You can only live in one at a time. And I think that there's a level of stress that comes with feeling that power belongs in money and that that's how you get your respect. And people chase that shit until they old and bony and can't move and can't do shit. They never get their health in check.
Right.
They never get that family quality time with their sons.
Right.
They never get to go to LA and do Vlad interviews and get weed.
Right.
You do all of those things, what else do you want?
Right. I love that because I'm big on gratitude.
And I'll just say it's a lot of selfish people in the world. So it's a lot of people that just want.
Right.
Want is such a dangerous thing.
Right.
Because all you can do is want more.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Snoop said it once. It's like once you make like a good amount of money, you're gonna always want to keep making that amount of money, or else.
And that's if you're smart. That's just if you're smart. A lot of people, and you know this, they just want to get rich.
Yeah, for sure.
And do nothing.
Right.
Like, you know.
Was it intentional? Was that your girlfriend that you had the baby with?
Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely.
All right.
Yeah.
You guys still together?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yeah, we live together. This is her younger brother, my manager.
Oh, I love
Family
it.
business.
Hey, I love it. Man, is this a good time to talk about what the fuck with the abortion laws?
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
Like, how in 2022? Are you kidding me? Like,
I think it's just and I'll just say it again, we need to be, and that's why, I also do what I do and shit. We need to be more vocal. Like, there needs to be more, there was a point in time when there were Martin Luther Kings and Malcolm X's, and now a lot of our public figures that we look to speak, or they're celebrities. We need to start putting people in a space or in a position that actually want to see a positive change in the communities that are behind the industries that they work for. That's the first step. You know what I'm saying?
Definitely. Respect. Well, I guess, yeah. 2020 COVID hit the world. How was the pandemic for you?
Super great, man. And I know that might sound crazy, but in the heat, right before, and this is how my family, and I do pride my dad on this, me and my brother's chief of staff and senior advisor for both of our organizations.
Love it.
He got us together. We were coming back from New York, and I had just done some show. I think it might have been, or maybe it was LA, maybe he was coming back from Kimmel. But basically, he had saw Governor Cuomo saying something about how there was this virus that was coming and it might hit, and it was already going crazy in Asia, and there's some cases in Europe. And my dad immediately called a meeting, and me and my brother got together, and he was like, hey, we're going to have to start pivoting on certain things. We're going to have to start working our businesses closer together. We're going to have to start looking at these agencies, and we're going to have to stop looking for so many live opportunities. We need to start pivoting and looking for live stream opportunities.
Okay.
And throughout the pandemic, I did Converse live stream. I did a Champion live stream of a sort. I did, Rihanna reached out personally and was like, Taylor, I want you to headline Pride Fenty, which was Raw.
How was that?
It was amazing. Super duper dope. I loved it. But then my brother did the Polo live stream. He did a Google live stream. He had all these different, I guess, examples or different spaces that we were able to pivot into. So I think when a lot of people were trying to figure out, oh no, like I can't play this show, maybe we'll just play it next month, and upsetting their fans more, or trying to figure out how to do these, live branded events that weren't working out, that were getting pushed back, and companies were losing money, having to pull out. We were working to do live streams and working with these companies. And essentially I was working on this project, Coming of Age, and waiting for the break that I could put it out when things actually got more movement, so I could come do this Vlad interview.
Hell yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Hell yeah.
So, shout out to my dad on that. He, created the preparation where me and my brother were both in really good positions right after the pandemic.
I love that. I love that you have Mr. Hudson. That's a legend.
Legend, man.
Hell
Mr.
yeah.
Hudson, forever young. First of all, the way that I know Mr. Hudson, though, just so everybody knows, Mr. Hudson is my favorite artist. When I was growing up, Mr. Hudson in the library, he had this group, and he had a song called Cover Girl. He had a song called Too Late. He had a song called Up on a Heath. Up on a Heath. He just had all these different songs that when I was growing up, I used to sing these songs, and they helped me become the artist I am today. But then also I watched him go from being this random dude that I never thought would end up mainstream to being signed by Kanye West and being on Paranoid and being on Forever Young by Jay-Z, and like crazy, man. So like that he gave me advice on how to propose. Like that's like a good friend of mine.
Hell yeah.
It's a beautiful thing.
So did Don't Wait Up, was that newer song or did you hold on to that song?
That is a newer song. That was the song that we put out on this project. And prior to that song, I had a song on my last project called the Project American Reject, but the song was called I Miss You. But Don't Wait Up was definitely, his pocket is so heavily inspired by some of the older music that he used to create.
Right.
And kind of like that lo-fi, like, you know, groovy, like this could be played in a dive bar or this could be played at a fashion show. Like it's like, so, you know.
Yeah, I love that. And you have Matt and Kim on the project?
Matt and Kim.
Kick Back. I think you said that's one of your favorite songs
That's
too.
literally my favorite song right now on the project. It's getting so much love. Shout out to Matt and Kim, man. Matt and Kim, they made Daylight and just created this environment, again, that allowed me to leave my community and figure out information on other backgrounds and places and groups of people that I wouldn't have found without them. And they've been such a big part of just my upbringing that working with them at this point is definitely a dream come true.
Definitely. That's beautiful. And what about the Jeremiah feature, you know?
Yeah, yo, Chicago, Big West Side. Jeremiah feature came along in a crazy way. I'd had the song for a long time, like 2 or 3 years. And it just got to the point where I was like, okay, what am I going to do with this record? This whole project was done and was sounding so sonically different than it originally sounded. I remember bringing it to my music director, shout out Dwayne Verner Jr., that did the whole executive production for this project, Coming of Age. And I showed it to him. He was like, I don't know if this fits. And then we started putting those real instruments on that joint. We started putting the bass on it. We started putting like the squeaking bed on it and like things that I remember from like, like SEX, take a deep breath, like just different ideas from those things. And then it just turned into something crazy. And then it was like, oh my gosh, did we just create a stripper dancing anthem? And it was like, we did. And then it was like, who do we get on this? And we started thinking about all these different folks. It's like, should we do Ty Dolla $ign? Shout out Ty, I love Ty. We're like, no, I have him on the last album we did this. I was like, should we try to reach out to, it was just all these different people. And then at one point we were like, oh my God, we need to get Jeremiah on. It's like we almost said it at the same time. And we hit up Jeremiah, shout out to him, he's family, of course. And this man, as he always does, showed up, draped out, decked out, but literally had on sandals and a Versace robe. He looked like the richest person I had ever seen in Chicago in the snow, and just came to the studio.
Gosh.
Knocked it out, man. He recorded that verse like 3 weeks ago. So.
Oh, wow. And it made wow.
Yeah.
That's
He's a good guy.
awesome. Yeah, for sure. And I think I saw something where you said, you mostly write your own stuff.
I write all my own stuff.
Yeah.
So I've never had like a writer. So yeah, I write all my own stuff, man. And I think, that's just a big part of like my brand and stuff. So.
How'd it feel to get that billboard up on 79th Street with your family?
Insane. It's crazy, because again,
I would cry.
It was almost one of those because it's like an emotional thing where it's like growing up, I had Kid Cudi, Kanye West, Big Sean, all these different people that inspired me, Matt and Kim, Mr. Hudson, to do more and be outside of my own barriers and limitations that society has set for me and I believe to be true ceilings that I could go to. So having that billboard there, it's a special billboard. We have other billboards in Chicago, but that billboard specifically says, I'm from here, keep going, #be yourself. And it's just a thing where I know that kids that have been tagging me in it, that live in those communities, that remember me living over there, or just know that I am from there, see that representation and understand that the limits don't stop when they leave their household.
Right.
They open up.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
That's beautiful. Man, real quick, we've been talking about your music and all that. What do you like to do to kick back when you're not working?
Man, I like to smoke weed and I like to work out. Like, those are my things. Like, I'll smoke weed and work out and listen to music, man. Like,
I hear you.
You know, everybody wants to get rich and do nothing. Like, if that was my thought process, I would just smoke, work out, listen to music.
I hear you.
You know?
Do you have any goals for yourself?
Yeah. I just want to be a better me than I was the day before.
Hell yeah.
And if that keeps going the way that it's going, it's going to be crazy.
Right. No, for sure. I'm on that wave too. Man, well, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Coming of Age out now. Go stream that.
Coming of Age out now. And super duper special shout out to Vlad.
Hell yeah.
Again,
yeah.
You guys cover so many different stories and topics. And that is what real journalists and real news outlets are supposed to do, is they're supposed to bring you information that's new.
For sure.
And if there's anybody that always has a story that I want to hear, and I'm pretty sure I haven't heard it told the way that it is, it's Vlad.
I love that.
So I appreciate that. I appreciate what you guys do for my community, for the community, I want you guys to continue to do it, and definitely wishing for the most success from you guys.
Thank you so much. You're always welcome here, Taylor.
I'll be back. Y'all give me free weed and shit.
Right.
I'll be back in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Shit.
I love it. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
You.